All right, greetings. Welcome in. Bettor's Last Stand, show number 105, coming to you from the Pine Room Watchdog Studio, downtown Wheeling, here on a nice chilly fall day. Definitely feels like playoff baseball, feels like hockey out there. And, of course, the pigskin. Can't forget about that. Also, European soccer. It's got that feel, that damp and cool feel. Getting dark really early now. Not quite as early as I like it, but in a few weeks when we turn those clocks back, it'll be a really, really good thing. Best time of year, no question about it. The leaves are starting to change, and things are good. You can sleep without sweating, and you can come outside without sweating, and it's nice to get in your car when it's not 100 degrees. So I know some other guys like the heat and appreciate that and think it's cold already, but this low 50s, high 40s stuff is what I'm made for. So nonetheless, we're on to another week here of Bettor's Last Stand action, coming to you. We'll be doing the second part of the show on the Watchdog Network, as we have been doing over the last several weeks. Sam, again, out of action due to work commitments. At some point, we'll hopefully get him back with the program. Definitely missing his insight on the NASCAR and racing side of things, especially. And he always used to give us out some touchdown scores, too, so we're missing those a little bit. So hopefully Sam will get back with us here very, very soon. Again, episode 105 coming to you from the Pine Room Watchdog Studios, downtown Wheeling, brought to you by the Brownie House. Visit yesbrownies.com today. Get your get some of the great things that they have there. The pumpkin spice brownie now is out there, and along with all the other good ones. Promo code Pine Room. Get 20% off your order at checkout. All right, let's get into it. Let's recap last week's show 104. Another positive week for us. Not a big splash winner by any means. We didn't have one of those big golf winners or NASCAR winner this week, but that's okay. It's this time of year. You're not going to get that all the time. But we were up about 7 units plus 690 to be exact. So we'll take that. It's always it's positive. And in all of our sports, we were at least. So if you just took the sports you're interested in, you would have been at least a little bit ahead or broke even around that with what you played. Even if you just selected one sport, you're a whatever kind of fan and you just wanted to play those picks, we were all right. We did okay. We were 3-1 in the CFL. UEFA Nations League, we were red hot on Saturday. I wish I'd have given out more plays for Sunday and Monday, but I don't want to push my luck in when teams are coming back on short rest. I just didn't know how that would turn around. But we were 6-1 on the UEFA Nations League games on Saturday, so really, really good ROI on those. And we'll talk about those a little bit later in the show when we switch back to the UEFA Champions League, which is back in action next week, which will give you some plays for early next week. By the time we tape the show, the games will already be started, so we're going to give them to you a week ahead of time. NHL, we were 2-2. Not the way that I'd hoped. There was a bad injury in the beginning of the Canucks game on Friday night, and there was like a big delay, and it kind of put a damper on the Canucks coming out. They were flying at home, and I thought we'd get that goal in the first 10, but it didn't end up turning out that way. So that was a tough loss for us. College football, 10-7. And honestly, I got to go back and listen to last week's show because I forgot what bet was my best bet. So I don't know. I probably lost it. I always do. But nonetheless, we did okay in pros. Again, 6-1, but too many favorites. Favorites just destroyed this week. We'll talk about that in the second part of the program when we talk all football. But we did have the Lions. That was our best bet. We thought that line didn't look right at Dallas, and it wasn't. The Lions, a much better team. They hammered the Cowboys at the AT&T Stadium. So a great winner for the Lions. We are now 5-1 in our NFL best bets so far. We had 3 in the top 10 in NASCAR. Chase Elliott was in the top 5, actually. He was right there. Just Kyle Larson, too damn good. There was nobody beating him. And when that happens, you just got to tip your cap, but we're not giving him out at plus 360. It's just, too many things can go wrong, and he dominated the Charlotte Roval, which we'll talk more about here momentarily. Baseball, bringing the up-to-date championship series. Right now, they're about exactly what I thought. I thought L.A. and the Mets would be pretty even. Going back to New York tonight, when you hear this, it'll probably be either 2-2 or 3-1 somebody, but hopefully it's 2-2, and it goes for a while. It's a pretty good series there. I think either one of those teams, to me, is the clear-cut favorite in the World Series, and I can't believe it. I do a 180-degree turn on the New York Mets. I was sitting here in this chair way back last spring telling you they stink, which I still don't think they're good. I still don't know where all their payroll goes. They have a monstrous payroll. They really only they really only have like two really, really good players, Pete Alonso and Lindor. All their other guys kind of homegrown. They haven't even had to pay him yet. So I'm tying up money with guys like Brandon Nimmo and McNeil. Like those guys, they don't even do anything. So the Mets ought to be able to slash payroll and still be decent. I didn't count on these young guys being this good already, and they're the difference in the team. It's certainly not guys like Brandon Nimmo and Jeff McNeil, who's not even, I don't even think he's back playing yet. But they got some bad players on that team. They get Winker. They brought him in. That was a decent upgrade to their outfield. But their pitching has outperformed itself all season long. Can it continue? I don't know, but I'll tip my cap to him and be happy to say I was wrong. And, we'll see what the Mets can do, but the Dodgers are going to be tough. Everybody on the Mets here tonight, from a book standpoint, too bad you can't get in on that action. It's probably a good play on the Dodgers tonight, although that place will be rocking, so it might be a late inning rally that gets the Dodgers where they need to go. But a pretty good series there. The American League, people keep asking me about this, the Yankees and the Indians, and it's just, I want to say Cleveland can do it, but they just can't. The New York Yankees are so freaking overrated and not very good at all. But they've had a really easy pass so far, and you can't criticize them for it. They're just better than Cleveland. Actually, I don't even know if they are. They just match up better with Cleveland, and Cleveland just can't beat them. The Yankees absolutely own them, whether it's regular season or playoffs. Cleveland just can't compete with the Yankees. They just can't. So I think it's going to be more of the same. I'll be shocked if Cleveland wins a game in this series. I hope I'm wrong. Hopefully by the time I'm back here next week, that's going to 6 or 7 games, but it would not surprise me if the Yankees win that in 4 or 5 games. As a matter of fact, if I was going to recommend a bet in that series, if you can find straight forecasts of that in the series pricing, looking at the series prices here really quickly. On a couple of the apps here. I'm trying to find, series games, series outcome. Let's see what we got here, because to me, well, that's not what I'm looking for. Series total run, series correct score. Yeah, can we just get, okay, that's what I'm looking for. All right, so Yankees 4-0 is 2-1. Yankees 4-1 plus 250. I think those are pretty good bets. I'd be stunned if it goes further. Now I could be wrong. Something could change. Maybe Cleveland hits a walk-off in Game 3, gets lucky, and the momentum just shifts that much, and the Yankees come back to earth because they're just not very good. They got 2 good players. Although Stanton is performing like he has been frozen and now recently thawed out from about 8 years ago when he was good. He's performed okay, but I think Yankees in a sweep, Yankees in 5 are pretty good plays. I think the other series will go at least 6 games. Dodgers in 6, 290 right now on that one. Mets in 6, 5-1. Dodgers in 7 plus 340. The Mets in 7 plus 450. I'll give the Mets a slight shot in this series. I think they actually probably should be favored right now as they're coming back home. If they're able to do hold serve here at home, I think they're going to have a really good opportunity. They can win games on the road. Again, I can't believe I'm saying this, but right now, Mets plus 130, Dodgers minus 155. I don't agree with that. I think that I would lean Mets if anything here. But tonight's game's big, and we'll see how it shakes out. And we should have a relatively decent World Series. It's going to be the Yankees most likely against either the Mets or the Dodgers. So MLB will be happy. Either way, they're going to get what they want. I wouldn't expect Cleveland to get any breaks of any kind with strike zones or anything. But we shall see. If you want to play the Mets over the Yankees, it's plus 450. The Yankees over the Mets is plus 270. I think the Mets will beat them. I would make the Mets a considerable favorite in that series. They just match up better. I think the Mets they'll be tough. And the Dodgers are favored against whoever they play. They're plus 230 to beat the Yankees. The Yankees to beat the Dodgers plus 250. I don't think that's even a comparison. I think the American League was very, very down this year. Very poor. A few teams that underachieved. And then Astros bowed out very quickly. Orioles were an embarrassment. And, so on and so forth. But that is the baseball rundown for what we got going right now. Enjoy those league championship series. Couple of numbers on those. Favorites now 17-13 in MLB playoffs so far. 16-14-1 the over. So the overs have been cashing a little bit. All right, let's switch over to WNBA. Finals going on for that right now. The Lynx and the Liberty now tied up at 1. We gave you out last week. We recommended a play on the Minnesota Lynx to win the series at plus 240, and also that the series would go 5 games, and that the Lynx would win the series in either 4 or 5 games. Lynx, all those bets still alive right now. Lynx back home tonight for game number 3, and then you got to say, I really like where we're at right there. Lynx plus 240 looks good. Series to go 5 at plus 160. I think that's really, really strong potential for that. And then the Lynx to win it in 4 or 5, plus 590 and plus 610 on those bets. So liking where we're at with the WNBA. I haven't been watching them. I got to be honest. I'm kind of pissed off at that league for just the way that they've acted about the Caitlin Clark thing, and it just annoys me. Normally I'd be watching that finals, but they just kind of piss me off, and I don't even want to contribute to the ratings of that league right now. So I'll still wager on it, follow it on my phone, but I'm not going to be taking in any of the action and listening to any of the commentary. All right, let's get on to racing. F1 is back this week, and they are in the United States. It's been a 3-week break. Lando Norris last one back in Singapore, a plus 165 about 3 weeks ago. We got 6 races left. We got Mexico, we got Sao Paulo and Brazil. We got Vegas. That's around, I believe, Thanksgiving weekend. And then we got Qatar and Abu Dhabi still to come. So finishing up in the Middle East with 2 countries that don't like each other, Qatar and Abu Dhabi. We'll see those 2 trying to one-up and get the best of the next one. The Circuit of the Americas is where we'll be at this weekend. And, it's good to have it back. Should be a really exciting race. It's a 3 o'clock start, which is pretty weird. You don't get a whole lot of F1 races to come along in the afternoons on a Sunday, which I'm pretty happy about, is now that I have NASCAR and F1 back to watch, maybe I don't have to watch as much football. So that's a definite positive in my book nonetheless. And we'll see what we can get going here. The United States Grand Prix from Circuit Americas in DeVale, Texas, which is right outside of Austin. So check that out. Should be a really good one here. Lando Norris is the favorite. Oscar Piastri of Team McLaren is the second choice right now. Max Verstappen around plus 450, which is just unthinkable. A few years ago, you'd said that's insane. I'm not really sure what to make about the race winner here, because coming out of a big break like that, I'm sure these teams have tested some things and done some new stuff. So I'm hopeful that this turns out to be a pretty good race. I'm assuming McLaren will be the team to beat, but I'm really not certain about that. And qualifying at Circuit of the Americas is very interesting, and we'll see what occurs when that happens. Now, to put it in perspective, Charles Leclerc had the pole last year, and he finished dead last in the race. And then Lewis Hamilton started third. He finished second to last in the race. Lando Norris started second, finished second. Max Verstappen was in sixth and won the race, leading the most laps at 26. But the McLarens ran pretty well there last year. The year before that, Verstappen won it again. He led 40 laps that season, or in the 2022 version of this race. Lewis Hamilton was second. Charles Leclerc started 12th and finished third. So from what I remember about this track, and it seems like the stats bear it out, is that you can pass here. So that's something that's good. It makes it a little bit more exciting. But there's also more areas for catastrophe. You have more passing, which means you have more close quarters and better racing and potentially some accidents. So that's where I'm going here with my bet that I'm going to recommend here. I'll put up a couple other ones of BLS_PRP for the weekend once I see about how some of the cars go in practice and such, about who may win and top sixes, double top sixes, some of the team stuff. But one bet I can recommend here right now is classified finishes. So if you're not familiar with Formula One, classified finish means that you're running. Your car is running. So it's not points finish. You get top 10 would be points finish, but classified finish means that you're actually classified in the results and you didn't have a technical or a mechanical failure or any kind like that. So basically, that's how many cars are running at the end of the race. Well, there's 20 cars in the race. And every single year since 2017, at least 3 cars have DNF'd in this race at Circuit of the Americas. And several times there has been 5-6 cars out of the race with multiple crashes, multiple mechanical failures. This track beats you up. This is a tough track. And I think these cars aren't made for this. They're made for the more softy European style. Well, this isn't that. So 17.5 classifieds you could have under right there, which means you would have 17 cars. That could give you 3 DNFs. That's 2-1. I think there's some value there for sure. 18.5 is the favorite. It's minus 140. That means you would need, you could get 2 cars to crash out and you would still be good. under the 18.5. But I'd tell you, even 16.5 makes a lot of sense here at plus $7. And there's a very good chance 4 cars DNF in this race. I would say better than average. I would say a 65% chance that at least 4 cars crash out of this race. So I think under classified finishes at 2-1, under 17.5, and under 16.5 at 7-1 make a lot of sense here. If you want to play it safe, you can lay the minus 135 with the 18.5. But I think those make a lot of sense. I think it's going to be a action-packed race, and I think there could be some crashes and some issues with mechanical setups for these cars. So they're very fragile mechanisms. One little thing goes off, they'll scrap it. They're not like NASCAR where they're pounding, well, the old days, pounding the sheet metal out and stuff to try to get a car back out there. If something's off top performance in F1, they're taking them out of the race. So you got to think that plays in your advantage. Again, enjoy the U.S. Grand Prix at Circuit of the Americas in Austin on Sunday. All right, let's talk a little NASCAR now. We talked about Larson. He got the job done. He was dominant at the Charlotte Roval. All you can do is tip your cap, but his price was way too short. We're in playoff week 7 right now. Interesting change here. Alex Bowman, I remember we gave Joey Logano out last week as a long shot to win the championship, but he was on a cut line and he needed to make it in. Did he do it? He did. He didn't really race his way in, but Alex Bowman failed inspection and was dropped to last place at the Roval. So he lost his playoff spot. Joey Logano is now in, and he is still live at 12-1. And now Logano's got a fresh life, and I look for him to be very, very, very dangerous this week. He's 13-1 at the race this week at the South Point 400. That is in Las Vegas, and he's 12-1. He went down from about 12.5-1 last week down to 12-1 to win the championship. Still think that makes a lot of sense. Ryan Blaney, he is 6-1 on the, actually 6.5-1 for the championship. And I still think Blaney makes a lot of sense. The same guys that I gave out last week, I think, make a lot of sense this week. Not only to just win this race, but to contend for the championship. But here's the problem. Kyle Larson has been red hot here. He's won the last 2 at Vegas. He won last week. Can he keep it up? I don't know. His price way too short for me to be taking a plus 350 to win the championship, and he is the favorite in this race at plus 325. I'm just not interested in that. Joey Logano, I misspoke. I said Logano was 13-1. He was 13-1 last week to win the championship. He's 12-1 now, so still good value there. Logano's 16-1. He has 3 wins here at Las Vegas, and he's 16-1. I'll be taking a shot with him this week, and Ryan Blaney, who's around 10 or 11-1. I think both those guys make a lot of sense. Again, Logano's won here 3 times. Blaney has won here. Actually, Blaney has not won here, but he's got an 11.4 average finish, which is next to Kyle Larson, the next best on the circuit, and actually he's 3rd best behind Joey Logano. So you're getting the guy who has the best stats at the track at 16-1 versus the other guy who's about the same at 3-1. So that doesn't even take any brain to think that one through. Logano's the play, 16-1. Blaney at 10 or 11. Kozlowski, 22-1. He's won here before. I think he's dangerous. Martin Truex. You know Martin Truex is trying to win one last time. He's retiring at the end of the year. He's been an all-time great. He's a champion. He's won a lot of races. I think he wants to get one more. This could be a track that gets set up, and if he has a good setup for this track, I think he'll have a shot to win. So take a shot with Truex at 14-1 this week. I got to pass on Bell, Byron, Reddick. Their prices are a little low for me, but I take any of those 3 over at Larson. I know Larson's been great here, but geez, I just can't bet a guy at 3-1 at a NASCAR race. There's just too many things that can go wrong. Again, Larson installed as the championship favorite as well. William Byron at plus 650. He is the the 3rd choice behind Chris Bell. And then you got the old great Denny Hamlin at 6-1. I still think Denny Hamlin a little bit getting ignored a little bit here. 6-1 for the championship for him. Again, Logano at 12, Blaney at plus 650, Chase Elliott at 11-1. Elliott getting ignored a little bit as well. He hasn't raced well here. This is not a racetrack that I would play him at. But if he just has a solid top 10 here, it sets up the next 3 tracks he's very, very good at. So you got to keep that in the back of your mind when you're talking Chase Elliott. Ryan Blaney too. This isn't his best track, but he's 3rd best right now of the active drivers, which is pretty strong. Not great at Homestead, but really good at Martinsville and Phoenix to finish it out. Logano's got wins at all the rest of the tracks, as well as Larson. And Chris Bell hasn't ever driven very well at Vegas. But the next 3 races, if he can get through this one, pretty good. William Byron has won at all 4 remaining tracks. So maybe Byron, out of the guys Other than Logano, if you're looking for a guy maybe in between Larson and Logano, maybe William Byron is your guy. I thought his price was a little bit low last week to recommend, but should be a good one at the South Point 400. Again, our plays will be Logano and Blaney, along with long shots, Keselowski and Truax, with a recommendation for Logano if you didn't do it last week for the championship, along with Ryan Blaney and or Chase Elliott. All right, that's going to do it for the NASCAR portion of the program. Actually, let me just tell you real fast before we move on. Larson led 62 laps last week, and then the last two races at Las Vegas, he led 181, which is staggering, and then he led 133. So he's had great setups here. You may not be able to beat him. I don't know. We're going to take a shot with it. So wager accordingly is all I can tell you. Hockey-wise, let's touch a little bit on hockey. It's second week of the season. We have some early data starting to come in. A little bit too early to give out a whole lot. Again, we did all right. We were 2-2 in our NHL bets on the weekend. On Friday, I'll have a couple more out for Friday. I'll post on BLS_PRP once I figure out who might be starting a goal for these teams. NHL first period data, goal in the first 10 minutes. Tried to get that home with Vancouver the other night. Calgary and Florida both 3-0, and the Rangers 2-0 to start the season. We'll talk plenty more hockey here in the coming weeks. Penguins look like they could be a tad bit improved if Jari doesn't screw things up, but it's a long way to go. We'll see. So check us out, BLS_PRP. We post all the picks that we don't have here, and ones that are time sensitive and you might not be able to get to on here on the regular show. So anyway, we're going to take a break here on the 105th edition of Bettor's Last Stand, coming to you from the Watchdog Pine Room Studios in downtown Wheeling. We'll be back, and we're going to talk all things football as we begin our Watchdog portion of the program. It's Bettor's Last Stand, show 105. We will be right back.
Reminder, this show is for informational and entertainment purposes only. All wagering activities should only be conducted by those 21 years of age or older and within the confines of federal, state, and local law. If you or someone you know has a gambling problem, contact 1-800-GAMBLER. That's 1-800-426-2537. All right, men, load the cannons and hold the line. You're listening to Bettor's Last Stand.
Getting back to our lineup here on the Watchdog, Cincinnati Bengals at the Cleveland Browns on Sunday. You can listen to that right here on the Watchdog, along with, of course, the Mountaineers on Saturday night, which is tomorrow night, and they'll be hosting Kansas State. Our three high school games, which we usually have, we only have two tonight, as John Marshall took on Brooke last night. So Butler at Wheeling Park and Carrick at Wheeling Central, both coming your way on WatchdogNetwork.com and the Watchdog family of networks here just a little bit after us. We'll have the pregame following Bettor's Last Stand, and then take you right up to the kickoff for Butler and Carrick, who are in town to take on Wheeling Park and Wheeling Central. All right, let's get down to business. We were up just under 7 units last week, plus 690 to be exact. We were 3-1 in our CFL plays. UEFA Nations League, we were very good there. 6-1 on those Saturday plays in the UEFA Nations League. Hopefully you jumped on those. We were 2-2 in our NHLs with a tough luck break, tough luck loss, that is, with the Canucks and the Flyers. No goal in the first 10, but you weren't listening to that here. You would have got that on the regular show, the full version of Bettor's Last Stand, which, again, you can find at pineroomstudios.com or at the YouTube page at the Pine Room Studios. College football, we were 10-7. NFL, we were 6-1. Our best bet did cash with the Detroit Lions. We were with three top 10s in NASCAR with Chase Elliott, Joey Logano, and Ryan Blaney. And we talked in the first portion of the program of today's 105th episode. We talked baseball, WNBA. We talked some Formula One. We talked some NASCAR. And we talked some hockey. So if any of that stuff interests you more, hop on over to at the Pine Room Studios on YouTube and or pineroomstudios.com, where you can find that, the full broadcast, or the full archive podcast. I guess it is not really a broadcast. The archive podcast, as well as anywhere you get your podcasts. Spotify, Amazon, Apple. You can find Bettor's Last Stand and everything that we do at the Pine Room Studios. All right, let's get into what was going on this week. We'll recap a few things, talk about a few things in the industry, and again, as always, if you have any questions or anything that you want to see added to the show, a certain segment of the sports, grid that you want us to start to cover a little bit more, shoot us an email, contact@thepineroomstudios.com, contact@thepineroompodcast.com, or you can visit us on the pineroomstudios.com webpage and submit an email on there. Our contact, there's a contact spot on there. We can get a hold of us. You can call the show, our regular spot on Tuesday or Friday. We are on Tuesdays from noon to 3 from the Watchdog studio, and we're also on from 2 to 5, and that's one of the days that it's a football Friday. And right now, on Friday, it is a football Friday. We were on from 2 to 5 from Gumby's in Fallensby this week, so checked out the new one up there. And we're happy to be involved with Gumby's and Jules Gentlemen's Club, who are a sponsor of this Football Friday on the Watchdog. So many thanks to our friends at Gumby's and Jules Gentlemen's Club. So you can call the show. You can do that anytime, and or text us and get a hold of us if you want to pass along anything that you'd like to see added to this show or any of the Pine Room Studios shows. All right, let's talk about what went on last week. So, bad beats. I guess this really isn't a bad beat because it's each one would be individually maybe. But home dogs this week in the NFL. We talked about the success of the 5.5-point favorites, or the dogs really. Anybody catching 5.5 or more, how well that stat had done prior to this week. Well, 9-0 this week, or 0-9, however you want to look at it. Home dogs, the 0-9 this week. So the favorites were just crushing. It was a bloodbath for sports books across the country. Some worse than others, and we felt it here, and we've seen worse days, but we've also seen much better days. Favorites were 9-3-1 ATS this week, 9-3-1 to the over too. So favorites and overs coming in like that, it is going to be yikes for the bookmaker. So we were hiding behind the counter, licking our wounds here as we start a new week. Road favorites, as I said, were road favorites 8-0. Home dogs 0-9. Like, that is just crazy to me. You don't see that more than once, maybe twice a year. So enjoy it while you can. Hopefully you had some winners. If you listen to this show, we don't go along with a lot of the public trends, so you probably gritted out scratched out an even par type week at 6-6-1, unless you loaded up on the Lions and went in on the best bet, which was a cigar smoker, if I will say so myself. Other bad beats, this one was a tough one. We had Marshall. We gave that one out. We were 10-7 in our college football games this week. We should have had 11. This is a sick loss. Marshall, -1.5. The Herd leads by 20 with 10:16 to go in the game. Their quarterback is called for intentional grounding in the end zone, so there's a safety. So Georgia Southern now makes it 23-5 with 6 minutes and 40 seconds to go in the game. Well, it doesn't stop there. Georgia Southern scores. They go for 2 and miss. They go for 2 and miss, so that makes it 23-11. Then Marshall fumbles with just over 3 minutes left. They're getting careless with the ball. Georgia Southern goes down and scores, cuts it to 23-18. Then Marshall proceeds to get the ball back with 1:55 and fumbles again. You can't make this stuff up. Georgia Southern scores with 1 minute left. Marshall would never move the ball at all. They win the game 24-23. So Marshall, laying 1.5 with a 20-point lead, turns into a terrible, terrible loser. So that one, I agree, is a very, very bad beat. So I'm sure most of you had the same fate. If you backed what we had, you would have, and that was a tough one to swallow. A Bettor at MGM wagered $300K. This would be a little tougher to swallow. A Bettor at MGM wagered $300,000 on the Jets +2 on Monday Night Football. They got beat 23-20. Yikes. That's taking 2 in the NFL. You're better off just not taking anything. That's just, I don't get it. I never really liked the number 2. It's so many games fall 3. This 2 just seems such a waste. A Bettor at Caesars bet $110,000 on the Jets +2.5, so he too was a loser. Then there was I believe it was the same guy, $110K on the Jags, loser in London, $110K on the Titans +1, all losses. Oh gosh, what a way to go. I guess the Marshall one doesn't seem so bad. On the other side of things, this was a great one here. A 16-leg parlay cashes in the NFL. $10 wins $131,000 after the Bills get the job done on Monday Night Football. This guy had totals on there. He had spreads, 16-leg parlay. $10 wins $131,000. This was the week to do it. When favorites are winning going 9-3 and overs are going 9-3, there's going to be a lot of those tickets out there. Here's what they're calling the Al Michaels curse. How about this one? Since Al Michaels left NBC, home of Sunday Night Football, and our good friend Mike Florio, friend of the Watchdog and the Pine Room Studios, Al Michaels left NBC in 2021. The unders are now 32-10 on Sunday Night Football. So I don't know if Al's getting any better treatment over on Amazon. A lot of those Thursday night games have been really, really bad in the past. They've been a little better this year. The Redskins open as a minus 8-point favorite this week at home against Carolina. The last time Washington was favored by this large of a margin was when they were a 12-point home favorite against BMAC's 49ers. And C.J. Beathard was quarterbacking the Niners that day. And I believe Washington won a game. I think they won by 2, if my memory serves me right. Best NFL cover teams thus far: Minnesota Vikings 5-0 ATS. The Colts 5-1 ATS. The Chiefs are 4-1 ATS. The Lions 4-1. The Bears 4-1-1, and the Washington Redskins 4-1-1 against the spread. So obviously all those teams have been playing well. A couple of them surprises, a couple of them not surprises. NFL Dogs plus 5.5 or more falls to 28-2. That's 20-0, 8 losses and 2 pushes after an 0-2-1 week 6. So here we go. The trend maybe ran its course, but we'll see. 20 wins, 8 losses, 2 pushes. Still pretty good numbers. So let's get into the lopsided tickets. Here we go, and you're going to see a lot of these getting home. It's the Falcons, -6, 94% on that one. That was a winner. 87% on the Steelers, -3. That was a winner. 84% on the Bears, -2.5 in London. That was a winner. 75% on the Redskins, +6.5. Now, if you got the late number of 7 or 7.5, you were good with the Skins. We gave out the Ravens -6.5 or 7. And either going to win or a push out of that. So that one graded as a loss, 74% of the tickets on the Colts. That was a winner, Colts -1. So 4-1 on those lopsided ticket counts, which goes along with the favorites covering. That is kind of coincides with that. Let's look at week number 7's lopsided ticket counts in the NFL. Do you play on the trend? Do you play back against it? I say, like I always say, pick your spots. You don't want to do this blindly, but you want to take into account all the factors and then adjust accordingly. 88% on the Redskins, -7.5. 79% on the Bengals, -6.5, which is just ludicrous to me. People just don't learn about the damn Bengals. 77% on the Rams, -6.5. 74% on the Colts, -3. 73% on the Bills, -9. 72% on the Eagles, -3. 71% on the Falcons, -3. And 70% on the Lions, +2.5. Those are your high ticket volume counts so far. NFL week number 7. Let's go over to the college side of things. Worst college football teams against the spread this year: Air Force 0-6, Kansas 0-6. Nick's burning money with Kansas. NC State 0-6-1, and North Carolina 0-6-1. Another one that Nick's burning money on. He keeps getting on the Tar Heels. Terrible. Oh, bad ACC. BYU 6-0 straight up, 6-0 ATS. They take on Oklahoma State this week. Oklahoma State leaking oil pretty badly right now. Books, this is a rarity. We don't normally need Georgia, but we do now. Everybody falling in love with Texas. Georgia kind of getting ignored. So books will be back in UGA a little bit, at least in these parts. Maybe way down in the South, maybe not as much. Maybe a little bit more Georgia love down there. But in the northern books, in the Midwestern books, you're going to be seeing a lot of books needing the Georgia Bulldogs this week against Texas, which we'll get to here momentarily when we go down the college card and what we like this week. All right, week number 7, lopsided ticket counts in college football. Recapping from last week, 92% was on North Texas against FAU. That was a loser. 88% on Boise, -20.5 against Hawaii, a winner. 88% on Missouri. Against UMass, they were laying 27, and that was a winner. Army, -26, 88% on Army. They were a winner as well. They covered against UAB. 86% on Clemson, -20.5 against Wake Forest. That also a winner. This week's lopsided ticket count so far in week number 8, 93% on James Madison. James Madison, 93% against Georgia Southern. They're laying 10. 92% on Navy, -17 against Charlotte. 91% on Army, minus 15 against East Carolina, 89% on Iowa, minus 6 at Michigan State, 88% on Buffalo, plus 1.5 against Western Michigan. I don't know how Buffalo got in there somehow, huh? That's a weird one. And 87% on Iowa State, that is the team that just beat the Mountaineers, minus 14 against UCF. So, yeah, some interesting occurrences there, I guess. But in college, it hasn't been as good for playing against those as in pros, although pros did not work last week. So we shall see what occurs. But before we get to college and pro football, let me remind you this portion of the program, as always, brought to you by our friends at the Brownie House. Visit yesbrownies.com today. Use the promo code PINEROOM for 20% off your purchase. And, man, they got a pumpkin spice brownie on there that's delicious, and they got all the other wonderful goodies as you get close to the winter months. And maybe you got to add a couple layers of bulk to get through a cold winter. I recommend starting with the Brownie House. They are the very best. And thanks again to our friends at Gumby's and Jill's Gentlemen's Club for sponsoring this Football Friday. Bear and Bob kicked it off with the good old boys on sports at noon. From noon to 2, we were at Gumby's in Follinsby from 2 to 5, and now we're getting you ready for high school football action here on the Watchdog momentarily. We'll bring you the pregame show, myself, Jeff, Chubb, and Chris from the Watchdog studio before we send you out to Wheeling Park and Wheeling Center, who are in action tonight on the Watchdog Network. All right, Canadian football. We weren't too bad last week, 3-1 in these Canadian football games. We'll start it off with a Friday contest. That's coming up here in, just a little under 2 hours, I would say. So get yourself ready if you want to watch a little Canadian football action while you're listening to us on the Watchdog Network with the Wheeling Park and the Wheeling Central games tonight. Calgary Stampeders come into the Hamilton Tiger Cats. Calgary is winless in their last 8 games. Hamilton lost last week as well. Hamilton 6-10. Calgary's 4-11-1. They're 0-7 on the road this year. They've been dreadful. 3 of the last 4 at Hamilton have stayed under the total. That's where we're going here. I think Calgary's about packed it in for the season. They're 0-7 on the road, lost 8 in a row, or they're winless in 8 in a row. They have 1 tie in there. So I think we're going to go under the 51 here. I like this play. I think Hamilton kind of takes care of business. Hamilton's only laying 3 here, so maybe you take a peek at them too, or you do a little money line with the total parlay, thinking Hamilton will at least win the game and play it under. I don't like those very often, but occasionally I recommend them. But we're going to go under Hamilton and Calgary on Friday night. Tomorrow, Saturday, it'll be a 3 o'clock kick. The Ottawa Red Blacks coming in 8-7-1 against the Toronto Argonauts, who are 9-7. Ottawa's lost 4 in a row. Toronto's won 2 in a row. It'll be Toronto minus 2.5. The total 49.5. Toronto's covered 7 of the last 10 against Ottawa, and they've won 8 out of 10 in this series. To me, this just has Toronto written all over it. I think they win this by at least a field goal. And if you really want to get interesting and parlay it, I don't recommend that. You're probably better off playing another straight. I'm not giving an official play out, but 6 of the last 10 in this series have went over the total. The total 49.5. So a small lean there, but we'll go with Toronto minus the points at home against Ottawa. Then another Saturday game, 7 o'clock, Montreal, the Alouettes at the BC Lions. Montreal comes in 12-3-1. BC 8-9. This is a pick. So right now it's a pick. Montreal, small favorite on the money line, minus 115, minus 120 range. Total 47. We're going to be focusing on the total here. Montreal has won, they won last week, coming off a win. BC lost last week. 8 of the last 9 games, or I'm sorry, that's BC's record. I had written down 8 of 9. It's really 8-9, which I already told you that. So nonetheless, they've lost 3 out of 4 overall, BC, that is, including a loss last week. Montreal 8-2 ATS in this series in the last 10. BC is. So BC has been pretty good here. So that's what got to back me off Montreal. Because when I was looking at this, I was like, well, I think I like Montreal, but no, I don't, because that's why. So BC 8-10 against the spread against Montreal in the last 10 meetings, 8-2. So that's 10 meetings, 8-2. Geez, I'll get that right eventually. 4 out of the last 10 in this series have stayed under. So maybe an under, but I'm going with the over here. I have a feeling this total's a little bit low to me, and BC's been giving up a lot of points lately. So we're going to go with Montreal and BC over. So again, Friday night's game, that's tonight. We got an under 51 in the Hamilton-Calgary game. And then on Saturday, we're taking the Argos, Toronto, at home, minus 2.5. And then on Saturday night at 7 o'clock, we're going over 47, Montreal and BC. Those are our Canadian football plays for this week. All right, let's get into a little English Premier League soccer before we start into the North American pigskin, and it's nice to have soccer back, although we did really well with the UEFA Nations League last week, 6-1 on those plays, so hopefully we can keep it rolling in the English Premier League. These games, Saturday morning, so before you get ready for your college football action, you definitely want to pop on Peacock or USA and check out a few of these, because this is a much better brand of football, if I do say so myself. We'll have West Ham United at Tottenham Hotspur. Tottenham Hotspur returns home after the NFL used their field last week. So Spurs was, actually the guys were out on international breaks. They really didn't make a difference. All right, West Ham plus 425 on the money line. Spurs minus 210, 375 on the draw. Two of the last three in this series have went over the total, which today is posted at 3. I've seen 3s. I've seen 3.5s. Both teams to score, which is where we're going to go here. And both teams to score is one of the few things that I would say round robining or parlaying would make a little bit of sense, because you do give up a little bit of juice here. And I don't like giving out things that are more than minus in the dollar range, minus 150s. I don't even like going as high as 65 or 70, because I just don't think it makes sense to tell you to do that, because you could just blow a lot of units on things that aren't really good values. Now, occasionally there'll be somebody that's priced at that, which is a steal, which they should be minus $3 and they're minus 160. That's a little bit different. So we're going to go with both teams to score here. Both teams have scored in this series 6 of the last 7 times. So West Ham and Spurs. Spurs has a big midweek game against Alkmaar, I think. And, I don't know how buttoned up they'll be here. They may have some inexperienced guys out here. I think this is a game they think that they can win anyway. Minus the 210 would say that. So I think West Ham definitely scores a goal. I think Spurs definitely gets a goal. This could be a 1-1 draw. I don't know. Maybe draw at 375 is a good play. Our next match also Saturday morning. This one at 10 a.m. It'll be Brentford taking on Manchester United. Manchester United, the home team in this one. Manchester United, a big midweek match with Fenerbahce coming up. So I'm a little bit worried about them. They've really, really been bad in Europe, and the pressure is really, really starting to get to Erik ten Hag. It reminds me a lot of Robert Saleh. Ten Hag was out the door last year. They brought him back for some reason after all the scrutiny. I don't really get it, but they brought him back, and he's been awful this year. I want to say they haven't won in 5 matches, so they're winless in 5. That was losses and ties. So that would be a little bit of a concern. Now, they have won 4 straight at home against Brentford in this series, but they haven't played Brentford a whole lot until recent years, because Brentford was down in the lower leagues. So with Manchester United having to travel to Turkey, I think one eye's got to be on that, because the European prize right now is very important, and they had a very, very poor performance the last time they were in Europa. They led it 2-0 and blew the game and lost. So Ten Hag under pressure. I'm going to recommend to play on Brentford, but I say draw no bet, plus 240. That's the better play. If you get a draw, you get your money back. Plus 240 versus the plus 335. Still pretty good. If you really believe in Brentford, play the plus 335. Or if you think it's going to be a draw, maybe Manchester United's happy with a draw, and 1-1 will suffice, and plus 310 on that one. So any of those options I recommend, but I'm going to go with the Brentford draw no bet, which means if they draw, it's no bet, you get a refund. But if Brentford wins, you win at plus 240 rate. Leicester and Southampton. This one an interesting one. We're going to focus in on the total here. Leicester plus 190 on the money line. Southampton plus 125. I actually was very close to playing Leicester here. I cannot believe they're a dog to Southampton, who's terrible. But we're going to focus on the total. 5 of the last 6 have went over in this matchup, and we are going to go over 2.5, Leicester and Southampton. Brighton and Newcastle, no play on this one. Both teams to score have hit the last 3 times, and 3 of the last 4 have went over 3 goals. So I little lean to Brighton there, but no official play. Aston Villa at Fulham. Aston Villa's won 4 straight in this series, and the last 2 have went over in this series. Aston Villa plus 180, Fulham plus 135 at home. The draw plus 240. Both teams to score at minus 160 is where I'll be focusing on here. I think both teams get a goal. Fulham, their owner, Khan, who owns the Jaguars, he's had a rough go of it. The Jags have been terrible. I think Fulham stinks too. I have them to get relegated. Small lean to Aston Villa, but they have a game midweek in Europe, and I think that their eyes on that. They probably think a point here will be okay. So I think both teams to score makes a little sense. 1-1 could be a potential outcome here. Everton in Ipswich. This is Everton at Ipswich. Ipswich plus 135. So in soccer, if you're not familiar with that, you may hear me say plus 135, plus 190 for Everton, and plus 225 on the draw. Well, in soccer, you're not going to always have a team minus here. This, you get great value. It's a three-way, so you're splitting it down threes instead of twos. So whereas you may have a Manchester City who's going to be laying $3, or a Arsenal or a Liverpool, even in the three-way, they're going to be favored at a minus clip. But when you got these lesser teams playing, you can find value. Almost all your bets are going to be plus money. So I'm not going to be giving you Liverpool and Arsenal and City against the lesser teams, because you're laying a ton. They can get beat, or they can draw, and you can just blow your bankroll apart by doing stuff like that. So you focus in on these teams where you're getting double plus-sided, actually triple plus-sided action. Now you got to beware of the potential draw, so that's why you factor in a draw no bet or a plus half on the handicap, which you can still come out with a plus ROI on. And nonetheless, back to it. Aston Villa won 4 straight in the series, and I'm going with both teams to score in this. I think that both they and Fulham punch one in. Actually, I already gave you that one. Everton and Ipswich, that's the game that we're on right now. We're going to go over the 2.5 here. I think this is, now it's a little bit weird. 4 of the last 5 have stayed under, but these teams haven't played each other. The last time that they played each other was 2002, so those stats don't matter. Based on current form, Everton surrenders a good many goals. They have won just 1 game out of 6, and Ipswich is winless in 8. So Ipswich could really use a victory here. They're a small favorite, if you can believe it. So maybe it makes sense to play Ipswich just a little bit, but I think both teams to score seems like a pretty good bet. Everton and Ipswich. Arsenal at Bournemouth. Arsenal minus 155 on the road. There you go, is the minus. Bournemouth plus 370, 285 on the draw. We're going to go over here, over the 2.5. The last 6 in this matchup have went over. Arsenal hosts Shakhtar Donetsk on Tuesday. Won't be an issue here. I don't think it'll be an issue there either. So Arsenal should have a pretty easy week. I think they win this one pretty easily. They might actually go over this themselves. I'd expect Arsenal to win this game something like 3-1 possibly against Bournemouth. So we're over 2.5 in that one. Sunday matchups. Don't really love anything here, but I got one pretty good lean, which is probably going to end up being a play. Man City and Wolves. Man City minus 325 on the road, plus 660 on Wolves, 440 on the draw. Last 5 have went over in this series. 3.5 is the posted total here. Wolves has a 1-6. I just don't know if Wolves can score to help get this over, unless you're counting on City scoring 4. I'm not. I'll pass on that game. Chelsea 3-0 on the road. They head to Greece for a Europa League match on, I believe, Thursday, and you got Liverpool in action against RB Leipzig on Wednesday in the Champions League. So both these teams probably having their eye partially in Europe right now versus their domestic battle here at Anfield. It's going to be tough for Chelsea to win this game. I think this has an under written on it. Both teams have defended better in recent weeks. A draw maybe at plus $3. Maybe not terrible. Chelsea at plus 375, draw no bet, maybe if you lean that way. But I think a draw here. I think both teams would be happy, take a point, and head on to their European matches in the midweek. Monday, that'll be a big battle. Crystal Palace visits Nottingham Forest. Nottingham Forest plus 130. Palace plus $2, plus 250 on the draw. We're going to go under in this one. We're going to go under the 2.5. The last 5 have stayed under, and Nottingham Forest has actually won the last 4 against Palace at home. So maybe a little nibble at plus 130 on Forest, but I like the under in this game. I think this is a low-scoring game. The matchups in the past have been very low-scoring. These teams have been playing pretty low-scoring games. Forest hasn't even been scoring at home like they did last year, so we'll go under in that one. Again, those picks all posted at BLS_PRP, our English Premier League picks, as we roll on Bettor's Last Stand. Show number 105 from the Watchdog Studio, getting you ready for high school football action. Coming up at the 7 o'clock hour, we'll have the pregame for you just after 6 right here on the Watchdog family of networks. UEFA Champions League back in action on Tuesday of next week. A couple of plays here for you. You got Club Brugge taking on AC Milan. This game at Milan. Milan 0-2. As we talked about in recent weeks, digging yourself a hole in this new format of the Champions League is not a good thing to be doing. AC Milan is absolutely desperate right here. They're minus 215 on the money line on the three-way. Bruges plus 505, 330 on the draw. I think an under here of 3 is a really strong bet. I think AC Milan, it plays as buttoned up as they possibly can. play. They're going to be very, very responsible here. I think they win this game 1 or 2-0. Even if you wanted to bet them to win to 0, I think it makes sense. If you don't want to lay minus 215 and you want to play them just on the straight money line, probably play them on the handicap, minus 0.75. That means if you win by 1 goal, you get 3/4 of your bet. If you win by 2 goals, you get the full thing. So you can find ways on the Asian handicap to help scratch out wins in a situation like this. But this is a must-win for AC Milan. They're actually kind of a little cheap at minus 215. And the under, I think, of under 3 goals, I think is a really, really good bet. So we'll go with Milan and under that, a Tuesday, 12:45 kickoff. Let's see. Red Star Belgrade will visit Monaco. Monaco saved a draw from a sure loss last week. Came back, scored a couple goals 2 weeks ago. They are unbeaten in 12. And they host Red Star Belgrade, who's been giving up a lot of goals, and they're not very good away from home. Belgrade, one of the hardest places to play. Just the epitome of cold, damp, and dark when you go to Belgrade for a midweek match, especially this time of year. It looks like it gets dark at about 1 p.m. there. But fascinating place to watch a match if you ever get the chance. Let's keep it going, though. Sorry. Belgrade and Monaco will go over 3. I think Monaco scores at least probably 3 goals themselves here, and all you need is Belgrade to score 1. Monaco may score 4 or 5. We'll go with Monaco at home over the 3. Shakhtar Donetsk and Arsenal. Talked about Arsenal. They got a pretty easy week here. They have a pretty winnable domestic game, and then they're going to host Shakhtar, who's just a mess. They don't even have a home field now because of the Ukraine and a mess over there. So Arsenal kind of left some points out there, too. So I think that Arsenal's going to be clicking on all cylinders here. I like over 3.5 in this match. Some other matchups don't have plays on these. PSV visits PSG. That's Eindhoven from the Netherlands visiting Paris Saint-Germain in France, of course. Borussia Dortmund at Real Madrid. No real play on that one either. Real Madrid minus 215 favorite there. PSG also a 215 favorite in that game we just talked about. Bratislava and Girona, no real play there. Girona a pretty heavy favorite in that game. Bologna and Aston Villa, this one interests me a little bit. Aston Villa off to a great start, 2-0. They're minus 195 here on the line. Maybe them on the handicap. Bologna, just okay. 0-1-1, nothing spectacular. I think Villa might get the job done, like 2-0 here. Cover that Asian handicap. Stuttgart and Juventus. I thought Juventus was a little cheap here. Minus 130 at home. They're a very good team at home. I think minus 130 for them. They're 2-0 so far. Stuttgart, not terrible, but Juventus, very, very, very good at home. So we'll take a shot with the Torino boys, minus 130 at home. Sporting Lisbon and Sturm Graz. They, not really anything on this one for me. Lisbon on the road, very leery. I don't like to bet Portuguese teams away from home, but I don't trust Sturm Graz at home either. Wednesday's card, Bayern Leverkusen taking on Stade Brest. Brest 2-0. Leverkusen expected to be 2-0. Brest not expected to be 2-0. It'll be Leverkusen minus 215 on the road in this one. Don't really have a play here. Probably maybe lean to the over there with Leverkusen and Brest, but nothing strong. Here's a game I'll definitely lean into the over. Celtic out of Glasgow, Scotland. They take on Atalanta. Atalanta minus 225 favorite here, but we're focusing on the over of 3. Celtic, the Scottish teams, Celtic, Rangers, these teams really, really struggle to stop good teams in Europe. They can score a little bit, but they can't stop anybody. Their defense is so poor. Celtic gave up 7 to Borussia Dortmund the last time they played. I think Atalanta gets at least 3 or 4 on them here, and we'll go over the 3 there. Bayern Munich and Barcelona. Oh, man, what a legendary rivalry this is. Barcelona at home, and they will be a plus 120 favorite, plus 175 on Munich. Munich did not play well their last time out. Both these teams 1-0-1 in the competition. Could see a draw there. I think neither one of them will want to drop any points. So. And here's a really weird tidbit about this matchup. Bayern Munich and Barcelona, 2 of the top players in Europe. I mean, just powerhouses. Won multiple Champions Leagues and always in contention. So the last 4 times they've played, somebody has won to 0. I think it's 2-2. So it's pretty crazy. So if you wanted to play that, somebody wins to 0 or both teams to score no, that's how you do that. And, it's pretty interesting. Dynamo Zagreb out of Croatia taking on FC Salzburg. Salzburg minus 150 at home, plus 330 on Zagreb. Salzburg 0-2. Don't have a full play on Salzburg, but excuse me, a lean towards Salzburg there, minus the 150. They absolutely need this match. Sparta Prague at Man City. Both teams to score maybe. Prague, I think they'll attack. Man City, a monster favorite here. Can't give anything out other than some goal-scoring props there. Inter Milan and Young Boys from Bern. Bern plus 590 at home, minus 265 on Inter Milan. Can't lay that on the road. Bern's a tough place to play, so Young Boys can be all right here. I would, if you can find them to score a goal at a plus price or score 2 goals, might be worth it, or maybe just both teams to score in that matchup. Feyenoord coming out of Rotterdam in the Netherlands. They take on Benfica of Portugal. Benfica minus 180, plus 415 coming back for Feyenoord. Benfica is my play here. Portuguese teams, I only trust them at home, and they've burned me many times. Minus 180 on Benfica is a little steep, so I'll be playing them on the Asian handicap. Maybe they can win this game 2-0. They've played 4 times with the home team winning all 4 matches. That's Feyenoord and Benfica. Liverpool and RB Leipzig. Liverpool minus 120 on the road at RB Leipzig, plus 270 at home. Liverpool 3-0 all time. Leipzig's never scored on Liverpool, I don't think. So we're going to go against the trend here. We're going with both teams to score. I think Leipzig comes out with a big effort here in a game they really need. I think they get at least one past Liverpool, who's not as good defensively on the road. Lille and Atletico Madrid. This was an interesting game. Atletico Madrid normally used to be a team that would be an automatic under. They got a 1-0 lead and they would just sit on it. That's how their manager, Simeone, would play it. They basically parked the bus, maybe tack on a second one, but they won a lot of games, especially at home. 2-0, 1-0, lots and lots of times, lots of unders. That's changed. In the last few years, they're not as good at the back. They're irresponsible. They get into high-flying, attacking type matches, which is very strange. It just kind of has to do with the personnel that they have. So 2.5 posted on an Atletico game anymore, and Lille has been able to score some goals recently. So I think over 2.5 in that game makes a ton of sense on a Wednesday. And that concludes our UEFA Champions League talk for this week. Those games, of course, coming up midweek next week. So they play domestic leagues on the weekends, meaning in your home countries, and then they bridge out into the European matchups on the midweek. So, yeah, pretty good stuff there on the soccer front. Again, Bettor's Last Stand show number 105. Matt coming to you from the Watchdog studio here on a Football Friday presented by Gumby's and Jill's Gentlemen's Club, bringing you up to the pregame show for Wheeling Park and Wheeling Central football this evening. John Marshall played last night at Brooks, so he won't have JM on the call. Or the boys, Ross, Coach Treveri, and Coach Heinerman won't be on the call tonight. JM will not be in action tonight, but they will return next week, of course, here on the Watchdog Network. So check out our high school football action tonight. We got the pregame show coming up before we send it out to the crews at the Wheeling Island Stadium and Bishop Schmidt Field this evening. All right, let's keep it going. Let's get into the pros. Everybody wants to talk about pro football. Let's get it started. We got another game in London. This time it's a Wembley Stadium game. So we talked about Spurs being back home. Tottenham Hotspur, they have reoccupied their stadium, and now the Jaguars will move across town to Wembley Stadium to host their second straight game, although I think they were the visitor last week technically, but they are basically a de facto home team of London. Jacksonville, minus 5.5. This game opened 3.5. It's down to 5.5, or down, up to 5.5. 42.5 is the total in this game. I like the under in this game. I don't really think you can bet New England overs. I think Drake may improve the offense a tad, but it's going to take a little bit of time. Jacksonville just looks like a team that's quit. And I'd give a strong lean towards New England here. I'm not recommending a full house play, but if this thing gets up to 6 or any higher, I know it's a rookie quarterback, but man, Jacksonville to me just looks like they've given up. That performance last week was abysmal. I really, really liked them and thought they would perform well for their home fans, and they did not. And it was a really, really disappointing effort. And I really, truly believe Peterson should have been fired last week. He actually should have been fired last year. But I can't believe that Khan's giving him another week. But if he loses again in Europe, the guy can't take it anymore. This is an awful performance. So I think it's a fire sale time for Jacksonville. I think maybe New England has a shot of winning this game, but I definitely like them covering. Probably going to be a full play. Check out BLS_PRP for my finalized ones of those once I look through these numbers one last time. Seattle at Atlanta. This is a 1 o'clock kick. -3 will be the Falcons. The total 51. This thing shot up from the opener of 47. I like the over. I bet it at 49.5. I'd still recommend it at 51. So take a shot. Think both these teams can score a little bit, although it would be a little leery about Seattle coming back for the 1 o'clock body clock game. But hopefully they leave early and that's not a thing, but sometimes it can be. Tennessee at Buffalo, 1 o'clock kick, Buffalo -9, total 41. The Bills acquire Amari Cooper. Nice job by them to bolster their receiving core and get some of the Browns sell-offs as the Browns continue to be terrible. This game, interesting, like I said, Bills -9, total 41. Open 43 down to 41. I like the under in this game, too. I think Tennessee's defense is decent. I think both teams will struggle a little bit on offense. I don't know if Cooper will play or not. Buffalo probably wins the game. I don't think they cover 9, and I like the under 41. Cincinnati at Cleveland. Again, this just baffles me. Just truly baffles me. This game opened Cincinnati -3.5. The total, it's now up to 6.5. 6.5. The Cincinnati Bengals are laying 6.5 on the road to a division rival, and they're 2-4. I can't believe it. I can't believe that that's the number. Well, the number wasn't that. It was 3.5. That I can't even subscribe to, but it's better than 6. And if people are betting this, I don't know what they're watching or listening to or whatever. Maybe just because of Deshaun Watson. Cleveland could have easily covered and won that game. Well, they did cover. They did cover for us last week against the Eagles, but they could have won that game. The Browns, they haven't been good. But has Cincinnati been any good? I mean, their 2 wins are against the Giants and the Panthers, and they didn't look impressive in either one of them. So I'll be all over the Browns here. I think the Browns win this game outright. I'll be on the Browns' money line. I'll be taking the touchdown if it continues to go up. At the very least, I'm getting 6 or 6.5. It's Browns all the way. It's fire sale time for them, but Nick Chubb's back. I think you're getting an inspired effort out of them this week, and I think they win this game outright and maybe even reverse spread this and play them minus points because I think they'll get on Cincinnati pretty good. And one thing the Browns can do a little bit is cover. And if they can cover Jamar Chase, Burrow is useless. Houston at Green Bay. It'll be Green Bay -3, total 47.5. I like the over in this game. This game opened Green Bay -1.5. It's up to 3, but I think there'll be points. I think both these teams have decent offenses right now. They can run it a little bit. They can throw it a little bit. I like the over 47.5 at Lambeau Field. Pending weather. I didn't really check the weather yet. It's a little early to be worried about Lambeau weather, but we maybe take one little peek there. If there's a lot of wind, maybe back off of that a little bit. Detroit at Minnesota, battle for the NFC North. What a division. Best division in football for sure. We talked about that on the Pine Room Radio show on Tuesday about how good that division has been. Minnesota -2.5, the total 50. Well, this is a tough one here. The Lions coming in off of a great performance against Dallas. We loved them last week. They're our best bet. Minnesota's been awesome. They really have. The Lions lose Aiden Hutchinson, their top pass rusher, which is a big concern. And, as much as I want to play the Lions in this game, I'd have to lean Minnesota. If I'm giving less than a field goal, I got to lean to Minnesota at home. Lions off a big win, lost their best pass rusher. Seems like it sets up decently for the Vikings to win this game by a field goal. So lean the Vikings in that one. Philadelphia at the New York Giants. Philadelphia -3. And this is a stunning stat. The Philadelphia Eagles have not scored a point in the first quarter this season. I didn't even know that was a thing. I didn't realize they'd been shut out against Green Bay in week 1, but I didn't get to see much of that game because we were on, that was a Friday night, and we were doing our high school football stuff here on the Watchdog, so I didn't recall that at all. But it's the first time since 1934 that they've went 5 games without scoring a point in the first quarter. I think the Eagles are really in trouble. I think they have a lot of problems. Their coach is a mess, and they got a lot of issues. And if the Browns were a little better, they would have lost that game last week. So I can't play the Giants here. I can't recommend to play on the Giants, but I'd slightly lean to the Giants if I'm getting 3 or 3.5 in that contest. Maybe an under in that game. Both teams seem a little dysfunctional to me. Miami at Indianapolis. Indianapolis -3.5 to total 44. Who's going to play quarterback? I have no idea for these two teams, so this is going to be a pass until I can find that out. Some sharp money showing on the over in the game, so maybe they think that Tua and Flacco are playing. That's how I would want it to be for the over, but I have a feeling Richardson's back for sure. Played last week some, and then you got the Dolphins. Maybe Tua comes back. Raiders at Rams. Rams off a bye. Raiders catching 7 at Los Angeles. Total 43. Like the Rams here, but 7's a lot. I like the under even better. We'll go under 43 in the Rams and the Raiders. Raiders are a disaster. They trade Devontae Adams to the Jets. They are falling apart. For whatever good Antonio Pierce did last year, he is undoing that very quickly. Washington Redskins hosting the Carolina Panthers, as we said earlier. Biggest favorite at home in a long, long time for the Skins. They lay 8, total 51.5, up from 47.5. It's starting to get a little high for a team that struggles to score. Carolina's on a 3-20 overall run. Not good. Lean to the under in that game, but no full play. I can't lay 8 in an NFL game. It's just not good. Kansas City at San Francisco. San Fran -1, total 47. I'll be playing the Chiefs here. They're the better team. And you know what? The Chiefs just seem to do everything what they need to do. They're coming off a bye. Andy Reid off the bye. Spectacular numbers. And I just feel like he's in Shanahan's head. So we're going Chiefs. They win the game outright at Frisco. Jets and the Steelers. It'll be the Jets now -2. It opened Steelers -1. Jets up to -2 now. I don't know if that's because of Devontae Adams. It surely couldn't have been because of Monday Night Football where they didn't perform very well. The total 38 in this one. How about this stat? The last 14 times the Jets have played the Bills the following week, they've lost 13 out of the 14 times. That is staggering. What happens again this week, Russell Wilson quarterbacking for the Steelers, it won't matter. They'll probably only score about 23 this week, and they'll win the game 23-17 or something like that. I like the Steelers in that one. Monday night, doubleheader again. Actually, not really a doubleheader. It's an 8:15 and a 9 o'clock game. Ravens at Bucks. It'll be the Ravens -3.5. Total 48.5. I lean Bucks in this game. Ravens are not going to be a team that travels and lays points on the road very well because their defense is just not very good. The total 48.5. Probably an over game. Going to be a lot of overs for the Ravens. They just can't stop anybody, and they do have a good offense. Chargers and Arizona. It'll be the Cardinals catching 2.5 at home as open pick. Chargers off the good performance last week. Harbaugh has them a very business-like team. I like under in this game. I think they stymie Arizona, hold it under 44, so we'll go under in that one. All right, rolling along here. Bettor's Last Stand, show number 104, coming to you from the Watchdog Studios here in downtown Wheeling, getting ready for high school football action. Before we do that, we got the pregame show, but before we do that, we got college football to talk about. We're back in action, and I will tell you this. I love this week's college football. To me, was the most difficult to get any gauge on. I didn't really have a whole lot of good feelings. Last week's numbers for college, we were decent. We were 10-7, and had some opinions that were good that went against us. So I thought the under in the Ohio State game, I thought that was a good play. I thought the first half was awful by both teams, but second half the defenses showed up what I expected. So it was tricky. And then, of course, the Marshall one we went over there with that terrible beat. Just a debacle for Marshall. Friday night, few games. Florida State at Duke. Duke -3, total 42.5. No interest in that game at all. I'd lean Duke. To be honest, it's amazing they're giving points to Florida State. Oregon at Purdue. Oregon off a huge win against Ohio State, laying 27.5 points on the road to total 60. Sharp money on the over. I got no real play here. I feel like I don't want to mess with Oregon off a big win, so I'll sit that one out. Possibly an under here as they come out, maybe sleepwalk and shut Purdue down pretty good. Oklahoma State at BYU. Oklahoma State now catching 9.5. It opened 7.5. It's now up to 9.5 in favor of BYU. It's a hot team right now. Total open 55.5, down to 53, down to 52. So some under action coming in. Sharps on BYU. I think the public's on BYU too. They seem to be a public darling. No play on this one either. Fresno State in Nevada, the final game, 10:30 tonight, -2.5. Fresno State will be. Sharp money coming in on them. Total 50.5. Small lean to Fresno State there. Don't really have any great plays on Friday. If I think of any or see an angle that I like, I'll post them at BLS_PRP. Let's get it started on Saturday. It's a noon kick. It's Auburn and Missouri. Missouri has Alabama on deck. Missouri bounced back with a win last week in a cover. We had them off of a humiliating, embarrassing defeat the week before. Missouri -4.5 here, the total 51.5. Can't recommend a play here. They got Bama. They're going to have one eye on Bama. Auburn, not very good. Missouri should win this game, but it's tough to predict how a team's going to behave when they got Bama on deck. Miami at Louisville. Miami -5 on the road here. Miami's going to lose a game here at some point. I thought it was going to be Cal. They barely got through that one. They shouldn't have lost or should have beat Virginia Tech, and they barely got through that one. So the last three in the series have went over. I like the under here, though. I think this game is pretty important to both these teams. I thought Louisville against Notre Dame, I thought they had the makings of a team that could be like a ball control type offense because I thought they ran okay. A lot of mistakes in that game for them. I think they buttoned it up a little bit. Papa John Stadium, very tough. Miami's had some bad performances in that stadium in the past. I've been to a few of them. It's been hide the women and children type games. That won't happen this time. But I would lean Louisville in this game if you're going to take the points. But I like the under 61.5. Wake and UConn to be UConn -1. Total 57.5. It's out up to 2 most places. Sharp money coming in on the under in that one of the 57.5. I have no play. East Carolina against the public darlings, Army. Ticket counts lopsided in the Army game again. We went through those earlier in the show. If you missed it, check us out, PineRoomStudios.com. You can hear the whole replay of Bettor's Last Stand Show 105. Army -15.5. The total 15. The total 51.5. The line is 15.5 in favor of Army. I'll go under in this game. I think our Army got us home with an under last week. Their ball control is going to be tough. East Carolina, I think, has a defense that can give up long drives, so we'll go under again with Army. These totals getting a little bit bumped up now because these teams can score, so now you come back in on the unders because they still are ball control offenses despite being able to pass a little bit. Arizona State and Cincinnati -3.5. The total 51.5. It's actually down to 50. It opened 53. So some money coming in on the under in that game. It's also a body clock game. I mentioned that in the pros for the Seahawks. Professionals a little bit more astute to handle that than the college guys, although with the way these conferences are, every week's a body clock game, so I don't even think that matters anymore. So maybe if you think Arizona State getting up and playing at 9 a.m. their time in Cincinnati's a tough spot to play in anyway. That's a good home field advantage. So I lean to the Bearcats in this game, but not certain I'll make that an official play. Clemson hosting Virginia. Clemson's been awesome lately. -21, 57.5 the total. They're smashing everybody. I mean, I don't see why they wouldn't smash Virginia here. Maybe the over looks all right as well. Been a lot of points in Clemson games recently. They beat us on the under last week. I thought they would tone it down a little bit. Did not happen. Nebraska at Indiana. Indiana now up to 6.5 point favorite to open. 4.5 the total. 50.5. I lean Hoosiers here, but no real play. Two pretty decent teams. They're improving teams that we were high on, teams that we have over their win totals for the season. So we'll look on and hopefully that both teams perform well. UCLA coming in off of a nice cover last week. We had them, and Rutgers and they did not cover. They got absolutely obliterated by Wisconsin, and I think Rutgers bounces back this week. They're laying 4.5 at home, the total 41. So we'll go with Schiano and the Scarlet Knights, Jubbs Scarlet Knights, to bounce back, minus the 4.5 against UCLA, who's got to come all the way back to the East after being in an emotional game for them. They were in a tight game, and they didn't get it done, but they did cover. So, yeah, I think UCLA is a little worn out. They lose the game. Wisconsin, who's coming off that big win at Rutgers, will now take on Northwestern. Next week, though, Wisconsin has Penn State on deck. I like Northwestern here. I think Wisconsin coming off the big win and then going to Penn State next week. I think Northwestern is right for the spot. I think them catching 7 at home looks pretty good to me. We'll take the Wildcats plus the points. South Carolina at Oklahoma. Oklahoma has 2.5, total 41. Sharp money on South Carolina. I get it. Oklahoma so poor last week offensively. They just can't move the ball. Maybe under's the play. I have no real play on that game. Let's move it on down to Alabama at Tennessee. Oh, this is a big one. ABC 330. -3 right now it is. Alabama on the road laying 3. The total 57. Small lean to Bama. I think they're a little bit better than Tennessee. Sharp money on the over, and I couldn't talk people off of that. Tennessee sleptwalked through, if that's a word, sleptwalked. Anyway, they were sleepwalking against Florida last week and came alive late to win it. But just in the nick of time, that was a bad one for us. We had them. That was a bad job by me last week. That was a total look-ahead spot. But I thought, because Florida was an all-time rival of theirs, that maybe they would say, you know what, Florida and Bama back-to-back, we're going to be up for both. Well, they weren't. So they obviously knew Florida stunk. So they were able to get the job done anyway. Small lean to Bama in that one as we roll on. Bettor's Last Stand Show 105. Got a few minutes left here, taking you up to the pregame show for high school football here on the Watchdog before we send you out to Wheeling Park and Wheeling Central in action tonight on the Watchdog Network. Charlotte 49ers at another public darling. It's Navy, the midshipmen. -17, the total 55.5. Navy off a bye. They got Notre Dame on deck, so I can't lay 17 there. Even these guys, as disciplined as these midshipmen are, they may look ahead a little bit. Big game next week at MetLife Stadium. I like under in this one too, 55. I think Navy controls this game from start to finish and do whatever they want. They're just going to want to get out of there without injuring anybody because they're really going to take a hard shot at Notre Dame in a couple of weeks. Michigan at Illinois. Michigan laying 3 on the road. That's interesting. 43.5. Not really wild about either one of these teams. Illinois goes out to Oregon next. Now, I don't think Oregon will be looking ahead for that game, but maybe Illinois will. But it's hard to look ahead of one of your former conference mates, actually current conference mates, but you've been with them for a long time. 43.5 the total here, down or up from 41.5. I don't really understand that. Michigan's offense has not been very good, so small lean to the under in that one. Moving down the card, it'll be the Cal Golden Bears taking on the NC State Wolfpack. This is hilarious. ACC matchup. Berkeley and Raleigh. Wow, yeah, very close. Right down Tobacco Road to Berkeley. Cal Bears -10, total 46.5. Sharp money on Cal. Cal, I'm high on them. I thought they beat Miami. They've been playing pretty well. North Carolina State 0-6 ATS this year. We'll be going with Cal. I think they win this game for fun. They smash NC State. Houston at Kansas. Kansas, as we said, 0-6 against the spread. They're laying 6.5 this week, 47 on the total. That's where it all stops. Kansas' season turns around. They win the game. They cover the 6.5. It's do or die time for Leipold in Kansas. I like the Jayhawks minus the 6.5. Notre Dame on the road, -8 the opener. Now up to 11.5 against Georgia Tech. I've been wrong on Notre Dame. They're improving, so I will give them credit for that. And Georgia Tech maybe has hit their plateau. So this could be an ugly beating for Notre Dame. So I'm passing small lean to the Irish. Now minus 11.5, up from the 8, the opener of 8. Colorado in Arizona. Arizona -3 at home. The total 57. Open 55. A lot of money coming in on the over. Up to 57.5. Makes sense. I might come back with the under, though, on this game. I feel like Colorado on the road, maybe just they're a little bit more deliberate on offense, not much. And, maybe Arizona wants to control the ball and not get into a shootout, and they can do that at home. So slightly into the under 57.5. USC at Maryland. Both these teams on 2-game losing streaks. You just don't see that. USC 0-2 on the road as this rigorous travel schedule of the Big Ten is starting to catch up with the men of Troy. Nonetheless, they're laying 7 on the road. You can get 7 or 7.5. If you want Maryland, you want the 7.5. If you want SC, you're looking for that 7. The total 56.5. I'm on the men of Troy. I think the Trojans bounce back here to beat a pretty bad Maryland team on the road. They got to win this game. USC, it's getting away from them very quickly. Baylor, speaking of guys whose program's getting away from them. Oh, Dave Aranda. Baylor Bears at Texas Tech. Texas Tech -6.5, total 55.5. Sharp money on the Red Raiders. Haven't seen enough of this team to know if they're any good or not, or the team or the league's just really bad. So I'm passing on this game. Texas A&M at Mississippi State. A&M -14.5, total 56. LSU on tap for A&M next week. Mississippi State is a bottom feeder, but you know what? I would take a small nibble on Mississippi State this week, plus the 14.5. They're scrappy enough to maybe hang in the game, and we'll see what kind of attentiveness A&M has when they get ready to take on LSU next week. Sharp money on the under in this game, and I can see that. I can see that a little bit. I can see A&M kind of going through the motions, getting ready for LSU next week. LSU, we just talked about them, and here they are in action. They're at Arkansas. This is a big game here for them. They are now -2.5 on the road, open to 4.5, so 2-point dip there. A&M on deck for them next. And Arkansas comes in with a good trend here in mind. The home team on a 9-1 run in LSU games. So that bodes well for the Razorbacks. So we're going to go with Pig Suey plus about a field goal at home. I think they win this game outright. Georgia at Texas, game of the week. This is a 7:30 kick on ABC. Longhorns -3.5, total 55.5. I'll say what I said last week. Texas hasn't played anybody, and they still haven't played anybody. Oklahoma, incredibly compromised with the freshman quarterback and their top 5 wide receivers out of the game. I thought they could hang in anyway because I didn't know how good Texas' offense is, which it is pretty good. They have some very, very dynamic players on offense, but that's okay. Georgia does too, and Georgia has athletes to match up with them on defense. So I like the Bulldogs here. I think they win this game, and I really like them, plus the field goal and a half. They're battle-tested. They already played Alabama and almost came back and won that game. And I think now that Georgia settles in, they continue to get better week after week. I like them a lot in this game. I think they win the game outright. And, Texas is good, but I'm not blown away by them by any means. Memphis -10.5, total 67 against North Texas. A lot of sharp money on the over in this one. Makes a little sense. We had Memphis last week. They had a nice cover for us, but I'm passing on this game. UCF on the road at Iowa State, at Ames, Iowa. It'll be Iowa State -13.5, total 48.5. Some over coming in on this one as well. No real opinion for me on that Big 12 matchup, but I do have a little bit of an opinion on this Big 12 matchup. It'll be Kansas State visiting Mountaineer Field, Milan Puskar Stadium. You can hear that game right here on the Watchdog tomorrow evening, 7:30 kick. I believe the pregame comes your way at 4:30 or 5 o'clock right here on the Watchdog Network. K-State -3 on the road. Total now up to 56 from the opener of 54. Sharp money coming in on the under, but a rivalry game next week for Kansas State. They go to Kansas, I believe. And I like the Mountaineers to bounce back a little bit in this spot. Whenever you think Neil Brown's dead and buried, he always seems to resurrect his team somehow. So I'll take him at home after a terrible performance last week, but I think Iowa State's better than K-State, at least from what I've seen so far. Speaking of Iowa, we'll stay in Iowa. It'll be the Iowa Hawkeyes visiting the Michigan State Spartans. Iowa off a nice win for us last week. That was when we did cash Washington coming back after a big win. Coming back out towards the Midwest did not work out well for them. Iowa -3, the total 56 now, opened 54. How about, I'm sorry, that's the Mountaineer game. I was going to say Iowa 56. That's insane. Iowa 41, that's better. The total for the Iowa game 41, not 56. Good Lord, can you imagine that? What does the world come to? Aliens will be walking amongst us before Iowa. There's a 56 in an Iowa game. Iowa -6, total 41. Michigan State has Michigan next. They're at Michigan. That's a huge rivalry and could salvage their season. And I know that Michigan's a little down this year, and they think that they can win that game. I like Iowa. I usually don't like to play a team traveling off of a big win at home the week before, but I'm going to play it this week. I'm laying it with the Hawkeyes -6. They're better than Michigan State. Michigan State's got one eye on Big Brother next week in Ann Arbor. Kentucky and Florida. Kentucky -1, total 42.5. Sharp money on Florida here, which is weird. It opened Florida 1. Now it's Kentucky 1, so a little seesaw action. I would play Kentucky here. I think Florida stinks, and Kentucky, their season's falling apart after their big win, but against Ole Miss, which really isn't looking like much of a big win. Now, I lean the Wildcats, though, to be just a little better than Florida on the road. SMU at Stanford. SMU, this team is very, very good offensively. They're laying 16 on the road at Stanford, total 54. Stanford, I know they're better than what people thought, and they're okay, but I'm going to have trouble getting the win total bet there. They did not look good last week. I think this could be another problem for them. I like SMU laying points on the road, which I don't do very often, but we'll lean that way. UNLV opened 5, now up to 7 against Oregon State. 61.5 the total on that one. No real play, but maybe UNLV bounces back, but I can't lay more than a touchdown. And then a team who's derailed our entire Bettor's Last Stand platform here. Our game, or not our game of the year, our bet of the year for futures was the Utah Utes over their win total. Well, Cam Rising's hurt again. He's only been in college for 7 years. He can now come back for an 8th because he's out for the season again. Utah, a terrible performance last week. Disappointed in Whittingham. I don't know what the heck's going on here with this program. You should have moved on from Rising by now. You keep putting all your eggs in this guy's basket, and he literally cracks them all every year. So Utah down a quarterback. They're laying 4.5 at home. Total 49. I don't know. This is basically the if you lose, you leave town. If you're Utah, you just bow out for the rest of the season. You can't continue on. A horrible performance last week, preceded by another terrible performance a couple weeks back. I can't make a play here, but I thought I would at least lament on the debacle that is the Utah Utes destroying our Bettor's Last Stand future bet of the year in college football. Yeah, not good. But that's going to do it for us here on Bettor's Last Stand. Hope you enjoyed episode 105 here on the Watchdog. You can listen to the full Bettor's Last Stand episode 105 by visiting us at thepineroomstudios.com, where you can listen to replays of all of our podcasts. Or actually, they're not really replays, they're podcasts. So you're not really replaying anything. You're playing it for the first time for you. Whenever you demand it, it will be there. Pine Room Studios. At the Pine Room Studios. You can also visit us at the Pine Room Studios on the YouTube page or at Spotify, Apple, Amazon, any place that you get your podcast. You can listen to Bettor's Last Stand, the Pine Room Podcast, Soup and Stuff, Pine Cellar Girls, on and on and on. Our radio rewinds here on the Watchdog with our Pine Room Radio Show each and every Tuesday and Friday. Of course, this Friday, another one of our football Fridays from Gumby's in Follinsby. Again, thanks to Gumby's and Jill's Gentlemen's Club for their sponsorship of Football Friday. Thanks to Bear and Bob and the boys, the good old boys that is, for getting this thing kicked off today at noon. And now we're going to get ready to have the studio pregame show with myself, Jeff, Jubb, and Chris, getting ready to take you out to the games, Wheeling Park and Butler doing in action tonight at Wheeling Island Stadium. It will be Coach, Luke, and Nick on the call over there. And then at Bishop Schmidt Field on the campus of Wheeling University, it'll be Wheeling Central hosting Carrick, Pennsylvania. Soup, Jarrett, and Cooley on the call for that one on WKKX. Both those games available at watchdognetwork.com. Don't forget about the Mountaineers tomorrow, 7:30 against Kansas State. Pre-game I believe begins at 4:30 or 5. And then Bengals and Browns, 1 o'clock on Sunday. Best bet action there for the Brownies. They win that game outright. And also like the Mountaineers against K-State. So maybe we get a big sweep of the Watchdog here over the weekend, and we get Wheeling Park, Wheeling Central, the Mountaineers, and the Browns all home. We talked with Kelsey Russo again from the Cleveland Browns. They traded Amari Cooper. A lot to talk about. It actually happened about a half an hour after we let Kelsey go from the Tuesday show. So if you want to follow more stuff with the Pine Room and the Watchdog, check us out noon to 3 on Tuesdays. We'll be in studio for those, and then out at Gumby's on the Football Fridays, all up and down the river from New Martinsville to Chester. And that'll do it for us here on Bettor's Last Stand, show number 105. The pregame show for high school football on the Watchdog is next. Thanks again to all of our sponsors as we get ready to take you out to the IBEW game of the week. That is Wheeling Central hosting Carrick, and the health plan game of the week, Butler taking on Wheeling Park over at Wheeling Island Stadium. That's going to do it for us. Episode 105 of Bettor's Last Stand in the books. Follow us, BLS_PRP, and at the Pine Room Studios all over social media. We will see you next week. Enjoy the high school football this evening and have a safe and wonderful weekend.